Hi, I'm Natalie Colbeck, and I'm super thrilled that Rowan, I don't even know how to say her last name. She will tell you herself. I should have asked her before the interview. That Rowan is.
Rowan Sivyer. But my
Oh,
husband always tells me I pronounce it wrong.
Rowan Sivyer, that sounds French, is.
Its origins are French.
Okay.
He worked with sieves, apparently.
Okay. That she's today with me. She is a super cool and super talented artist from Australia. And we got together for this interview today. She's part of Creative Jumpstart 2019. I cannot wait to see what she's doing, but I'm also super thrilled to have a little chat with her. So, Rowan, do you want to tell us, for those of us who don't know who you are, dummies? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that's not true. I'm sure they all know who I am. No. So I'm a Kiwi living in Sydney. I always like to make that distinction. I don't know if you know the thing about Kiwis versus Australians, but that's all right. I do love Australia. I have been trying to do this full time for the last about 4 years, I suppose, but I've always been creative. But really making a go of it probably in the last 2 years. And it's good. It's a work in progress.
That is cool. So tell us a little bit what you do in your art, like what your artwork entitles or what you do as art.
Oh, what don't I do? I always say I have a bit of ADHD when it comes to arts and crafts, because I get involved down in one form, and I then go down the rabbit hole, and then I come out and I turn into something else. But the things that I suppose really stick with me and that I do a lot of, I do a lot of printmaking. That's probably my number one. Certainly the thing I get the most joy out of. I never get tired of doing that. I also really enjoy watercolors. I do a lot of watercoloring, and I do a bit of abstract acrylics as well. But sketches. I've also been getting into digital illustration a lot recently. I'm really enjoying that and the possibilities in that media as well. So a bit of everything.
Yeah, she does. And I think the first time that I discovered you a couple of years ago was through your stem carving and your printing. What's your tell people what your handle on Instagram is, and that might ring a bell with a lot of them too.
Little Rowan Redhead. I'm not a natural red, but I always say it's my spiritual color.
Yeah, and if you go to her Instagram account, you will see she has these like amazing prints, portraits, carved stamps. So it's like super fun to follow, and I love printmaking, and I don't do a lot of stamp carving myself, but I design stamps, so it's like definitely I love all about it. So it makes me always excited when I see what you come up with and what you post. So you said you're
Sorry, I always say it's instant gratification.
Yes.
Carved stamp is the best thing in terms of just something that you can do in 10 minutes and instant creativity. It's wonderful.
It's fun that's true. It's funny that you mentioned you are from New Zealand, which I would just want to throw in the Flight of the Conchords because I'm a big fan of them.
Me too. I love Brett and Jermaine.
Yeah, I think they're back, right? So, or at least they have a new thing going on, and I definitely have.
They always have something going on, but yes, I love them. I saw them. I remember seeing them well before they made it big in their series, and I remember thinking at the time, "Oh God, they are just too funny men." But it's very curious. New Zealand humor is quite different from other forms of humor. Mm-hmm. We're a little bit dark, a little bit quirky, but it's good.
Yeah, I love them. When I was in Germany, I had both of the. I think it was 2 seasons, and we had both DVDs, and we really enjoyed it. Took me a while in the beginning to get into the accent, but just as a German, you have a different accent as anyone else, and it's English, but it was like super cool. I loved it. And if you don't know Flight of the Conchords, then check it out. Yes, definitely. But so that's a good thing to say, because people might think that, you know, Australia and New Zealand are like kind of the same thing, which Rowan already kind of hinted that's not maybe the same thing, and you shouldn't say that.
Canadians and Americans.
Right, exactly. So,
well, the Irish and the English.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. We're not hugely apart, but there are little quirks. I always say that we're kind of the little brother who's always, you know, trying to compete, even though the older brother's like, I don't really care. So that's kind of the New Zealand versus Australians. Australians a bit more brash, I think. Kiwis a bit more laid back. Brash in a good way. Like, I love the brashness. I always describe the differences like between Australian birds and New Zealand birds. New Zealand birds are beautiful, but they're a little bit muted, whereas Australian birds are all out there.
Well, that's so fun. You mean like the kookaburra?
Yeah, kookaburras and cockatoos, and, you know, they're just like, look at me. That's Australians, as opposed to the New Zealand birds. They're a bit more, you know, we're cool and we know it, but we don't need to be so out.
I love that we actually have, let's see, I think we have 3 Australians this time on Creative Jumpstart. No, actually, well, you're counting as an Australian because you are in Australia right now. So, but it's Rachel Craig, you, and Jen Crossley. So we have like from that part of the world, we have a lot of people. When did you move to Australia?
I moved in 2002. I followed my husband, or wasn't then, but became. He got transferred with work. I came over, and I was like, I'm not going to Australia, because I kind of thought, well, we could always go to Australia. It's just across the ditch. I was thinking we go further aflung, and we did think this was going to be a 2-year sojourn before moving offshore. But anyway, here we are. We're still here. 2 kids, house, dog.
So what does, I mean, I'm just asking that question. It doesn't have to have to do with moving, you know, countries. Just like I moved countries too, and of course I always think about that question, like, what does home mean to me? And it's funny because I sometimes say home and I mean Germany, or say home and I mean, you know, the U.S. here in Jersey City. But like, what does, like, the theme of Creative Jumpstart is my home is my castle, and it can be taken as far as you want, right? So, but what does home mean to you?
Well, I've thought about this a lot recently, because for me, I suppose it really does come down to the possibly a cliche, but I think it's true that home is where the heart is. Mm-hmm. And for me, home is family, comfort, a safe space, a place you feel most comfortable being yourself. So home for me is not just this house in you know, bricks and mortar. It's more of an abstract thing. And home is also, you know, I always think of going home to New Zealand, but home is here in Australia too. It's really difficult because at the moment back in New Zealand, my mum's got Alzheimer's, which, sorry, it is a bit of a downer, but at the same time, there's lots of questions around, you know, would we move back? Mm-hmm. What constitutes home? In the end, I think as long as our family is strong and happy, then home can be wherever they are.
Yeah, I agree. And it's always interesting. Like, I had a grand aunt who had dementia when she was older, and I was her caretaker. So I know the implications and thoughts that you have about, like, you know, can I bring them over? Or, I mean, I definitely wouldn't have brought my aunt over, but she also lived far away in Germany. And she was always saying, you know, but this is my home here. I can't be transplanted. But then on the other hand, when she forgot everything, you know, she was happy in her own little world, but I don't think she really realized and noticed where she actually was. And I think that is, in a way, something that we know even before we might lose some of our, memories. We kind of know that a home might not be tied to an actual physical place, right? It's like where you said, as where we are happy, and that's maybe the reason why both you and I are referring to both places as home, and it's so hard to make that distinction. That's it's interesting, and I feel it's so. It makes me think a lot about, like, when you think about borders or countries and everything, and you're like, well, at the end of the day, I was just born in a place, and now I'm living in a place. But I think, where your heart is and when you're happy, that's home. So, so we mentioned that you're carving a lot of stamps, and they're sometimes they're patterns, sometimes they're not. So, what is there anything around your home or your area that inspires you for your carving patterns or images?
Yeah, look, Sydney, certain parts of Sydney and certain places that we've lived, I love terrace houses and certain aspects of Sydney architecture. So that has inspired certainly a large print before. But even in terms of patterns, all the wrought iron fences, Art Deco windows, like stained glass windows, all those things. I don't know if you can see behind me. I've kind of got LED lights in my studio. Those kind of shapes inspire me. And then sometimes just regular things around the house, whether it's kitchen implements or sewing notions. Look, you can take inspiration from everything, can't you? And if it speaks to you or means something to you. Those are, I did a whole series of little sewing notions, which was quite fun, just taken from ideas from my now neglected sewing supplies.
Maybe pick it up again. So I was actually seeing your door before, which is so cool. Have you ever done a print of the door, like the pattern on the door? Because you also have all these like textures in it and everything, right?
Yeah, I have. I think I've taken a little bit of the circle aspect at the top, and then even if I don't take that, often I'll look at something and go, I'll Pinterest other ideas relating to that, and then so even if that doesn't necessarily inspire the stamp, it will inspire the journey towards the stamp.
Is your house like a Victorian house? Now I'm like imagining it's like this old Victorian house.
No, it's it is old. I think it was built in the 1880s.
That's Victorian.
Yes, Victorian. But not. So I'm trying to. It's like a double fronted. It's one of the bigger houses on the street. There's a lot of kind of workers' cottages, but this one's double fronted, and we have a sun, which it was probably a porch, I suppose, but it's all been closed in. That's where I work. So I kind of look onto the street.
Cool.
And it's quite a long room, as you might be able to see.
That is cool.
But it gets some really nice light. So it's a good spot. It's very messy. I'm not the most organised.
Who is? I'm not either.
Every now and then I have a clean up, and then I get into this. As soon as the desk is clean, I get into this mad, crazy, productive mode, and then within an hour, it's covered again. So,
I oftentimes have just like the space where I'm actually working on a project. That's like the clear space, and everything else looks like hoarding mess. Like,
you see what I pushed aside? I literally just pushed the laptop in. Pushing. What can I see? I can see all my watercolors over here. I've got a jug. I don't know where that came from. A coffee cup over here, and diaries, and brushes, stamp making stuff. It's mad.
It is fun though. So I also saw on your Instagram account, and you mentioned that before too, that you're now doing a lot more Portraits.
Yeah. So this year I did. Every year I do a 100-day project. Or every year. I think this was the third year doing it. Man, it was hard this year. But I did 100 days of faces this year because I just wanted more practice. And then on the back of that, I've just recently had a commission to do 40 portraits for a wedding. It's like bonbonniere. So
wow.
This morning. So I don't know if you can.
Oh, that's cool.
So she sent me photos of all the guests.
Wow.
That's what I'm doing.
That's amazing.
You take the work where you can get it, you know.
And then what she's gonna put them out there
all in frames and have them, I think, in the table settings at the wedding.
What a great idea! I love that.
Great idea. It's very sweet, very sweet. Saves you from, what is it usually, like a packet of sugared almonds or?
Yeah.
I don't know. People do get very creative. I didn't have any of that at my wedding, but
no, me neither. But that is really cool. So you do a lot of commission, or you do sometimes commission work too.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I think in this line of work, you need to be open to anything.
Right.
So
exactly.
I always say you've got to have various streams of income. I have my market stalls, I have my online sales, I have my workshops, and I take commissions. And hopefully in the midst of all that, you have enough to keep you going.
Exactly. So, Rowan, if people would want to find you and also take workshops with you, where can they find you, and what kinds of workshops are you teaching in the next couple months, for example?
So I'm always teaching. I have a class called Zen in the Art of Stamp Carving, because I think stamp carving is a new form of meditation. I find it very relaxing. So that's what I've been teaching on and off for quite a while now. I teach through, so I do classes sometimes at the Australian Design Centre in Sydney. And I offer classes also at my house, although that's a little bit tricky at the moment. But I have had a few classes here, which is really nice, because I get to see, people get to see me in my space, and it's relaxed, and it's homely, and hopefully it's not too intimidating for people. They can just come and see what I do and do it themselves. I'm also, I think I've been doing some fabric printing classes, and I would also like to maybe start to get into some watercolor classes too. So that's maybe not from now till Christmas, because it's crazy time, but in the new year, I'm going to try and get into a few more acrylic classes.
Where do you announce your workshops? Where can people find out about them?
Sorry?
Where do you announce your workshops, and where can people find out about them?
So I announce them through Instagram, and also and Facebook, and on my website, which is www.littlerowanredhead.com.
Yeah, check it out. I would love to take a workshop with you, but now you're so far away.
I know. I've had many people say, when are you going to do an online workshop? And, that's just getting my head around technology.
Well, you have a start here, and we're super excited, and maybe that gets you into the groove to do your own bigger course. And if you do, this would be the right moment, and then you can announce it.
I know. Tell me to get that diary out and get planning.
It was so lovely to talk to you, Rowan, and to get to know you a little bit better. So we can't wait to see your video. Check out Rowan's website if you don't know her yet, or if you know her, go back to her website and check out when she has workshops. Sign up through her links for Creative Jumpstart, and thank you so much to Australia.
Thanks, Nat.
Bye.
Bye.